Can you make it show up there? Why isn't it showing? Did you hit projector? You have to also project it. I don't know why we do, but we do. Yeah, thanks. What was that?
Muted. Hey, Bill, how you doing? Good, how you doing, Mike? Good.
It goes straight up, doesn't it come up? There. Oh, yeah. I know, but it's hard. There's too much. We are muted, right? Okay. Why isn't it starting? And why isn't it projecting? You guys? I can't get it to work, I guess. Okay, there we go.
Just like sitting here, my brain is so right now.
I know. That's a lot.
Mr. Bigger, I'm just trying to determine if we have the board members logged in. Yeah.
I'm muting everyone.
Okay.
I'm muting one or two, and then you're ready to come in.
Okay, thank you.
Oh gosh, I have to go first right away.
Don't need Mrs. Hartrack, didn't you?
Person
You
there.
have to unmute, stay on your end,
Tracy.
allow the host to unmute.
Yeah, she got it. Okay. Sorry about that. It's okay.
We're not doing a camera, right? So that's
Mr.
fine.
Booth will not be able to make it. Okay, then I think we have everybody. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Alyssa.
I'm muted,
Good
so.
evening,
She'll
everyone.
unmute. Should I tell her?
Yeah.
Welcome to the Standing Committee's meeting for September 8th for the Board of Education. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone.
Are you unmuted?
Mrs. Ramirez, I believe you have the word.
Josh, did she unmute you?
We'll repeat.
Josh, are you unmuted?
Unavailable to attend. So we have the roll call, and we'll go right into our first committee report with academics, education, technology, student supports, Ms. Seaga.
Thank you, Mr. Chando. A couple of business items for board members to be aware of before we get started on the agenda items. First, you may have noticed that there is not an AIE report in your committee agenda. The committee met last week and we felt that given the new format of the board briefings that we are receiving every other Friday, that the curriculum team was putting together a lot of the information that otherwise would have been in the AIE report. So if there's ever anything in those board briefings that you have questions about or would like more information, perhaps to appear on a committee agenda, please just let me or Dr. Keegan or Mr. Sciatic know so that we can get you that information. And then, as I just mentioned, the academic committee, meaning Dr. Keegan and I met with Mr. Sciatic and members of his team last week for several hours to discuss in detail the items that you will see on the agenda this evening. So we hope that will kind of streamline the process for all of you. You'll still get sort of the overview of many of these issues without necessarily the same in-depth presentations that we got. In no way, though, does that mean that, you know, if there's any information that you need or any questions that you have, we would, of course, you know, like to hear them. So please feel free to either ask them this evening or get in touch with one of us. We have a number of items on the agenda this evening, mostly contracts, but the first item is related to a donation that the school district received, and then we will move into discussing the contract. So I will turn it over to Mr. Sciatic so he can review those items for us.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Sciatic, and good evening, everyone. Tonight we have multiple items for discussion and for information, and I'd like to do this in 3 phases. So phase 1, and we're getting feedback. So phase 1, we'd like to offer up some information on items 2A through 2E.
Do you have your laptop open or no?
And we're still getting feedback, so
You're good now, Josh.
we're okay? All right, so we'd like to do this in 3 phases. So items 2A through 2E, we will certainly talk to and then take questions and suggestions and any type of question that you have as a board in regard to those items. After that, we're going to proceed through 2F, which contains multiple contracts from our intermediate unit, and we'll then speak to those. And then at the end, we would like to have a roundtable share out just from the team members of our committee, just to catch everybody up on what we've been doing and how the back to school has gone, and just wanted to kind of share out just a good roundtable. So that's the approach we'd like to take tonight. So beginning with item 2A, I would like to just share with the board and the community that the Staples in Berkham Place in Easton decided to contact us in regard to donations, and ultimately decided to donate to our district 200 face shields from Staples, and also school supplies were donated to Cheston, Paxenosa, and March Elementary Schools. So they were in the realm of $5 and $10 gift bags to our students and administrators to give out. Those retail around $4,000 that were given to us as a donation. So I just felt it was extremely important not only to put on our agenda, but just to publicly recognize the general manager of that Staples, Mr. Matthew Piasecki, for just the generosity that his team showed us as a district, as well as all the people that donated to Staples so that they could do that. So really good news, and I know the principals were extremely happy about that, so thank you to Mr. Piasecki, and that's item 2A. Moving to item 2B, I am now going to hand this to Ms. Ann McIntyre to discuss our first contract renewal that we will be placing on the agenda.
She needs to unmute me.
Yeah, she did, and then when you muted it, lock it back up.
Can you just tell her? I'm
There,
muted?
go ahead.
Okay, thank you. We are seeking this contract renewal for Discovery Education, which we have been using for 3 or 4 years now. It's through the IU. It's a consortium pricing for $6,000. We find it to be a very valuable tool, and it's for students in grades K through 5. As a team, our curriculum and instruction group fully supports this renewal. Our PACS librarian, Mr. Shinton, came to our meeting the other night on Thursday and shared some of the great things you can do with Discovery Education, so we appreciate his time. And Meg and Dr. Keegan were there to learn more about some of the specifics of the app. They do share a lot of great PD opportunities, some really awesome teaching strategies, in addition to just lessons for students. So we find that to be a very valuable tool. As we move to the next slide, Mrs. Arntz will provide you some specifics.
And just a quick clarification, Ann, it is grades K through 12 for Discovery Ed streaming,
Yes.
Not K through 5, so just K
Oh,
through
did I
12.
say K through 12?
Yeah.
Sorry, K through 12.
Okay, I'm going to be speaking about Edpuzzle, also up for a contract renewal. This is something that we've contracted. I think this is our 3rd year now. And I'd like to thank Mrs. Amanda Gorey, a teacher at the high school, who presented Edpuzzle to Ms. Dr. Keegan and Ms. Sayago. And Edpuzzle is a means of delivering content, so a teacher can take video and they place it into the Edpuzzle platform, and they can embed questions, and whether they be verbal questions or Q&A questions, multiple choice, right into the format. So as students are working through the video, it pauses at those moments where you just want to check on them and say, did you understand what you just saw or heard? And then the students can answer the question. If they need to repeat that section, they can go in and repeat. So it's a great tool for formative assessment. And it's really been a great tool for our asynchronous and synchronous learning. As students are home, they can do this on their own, and the teachers receive reports back based on how the students are doing. So it's a great way for teachers to check in on their students, see where they're having some misunderstanding, and touch base with them for things they need help with. So it's interactive, it's engaging, and the students seem to enjoy it as well as benefit from it. Really nice feature is that it does integrate very well with our Google Classroom, which is part of our G Suite for Education platform. Okay, next slide will be Ms. Piazza.
Good evening, thank you. So this first slide talks about First in Math. First in Math is an online platform we have for many years here in the district that concentrates on solving. One of the features that we like about the program is that it is adaptable to the students' learning needs, so the teacher can program it appropriately for individual students. Additionally, there is a competitive nature to the program, both for interpersonal competition, pushing yourself to do more problems than you've done the day before, but there is also a national competition involved with this particular program, in which our students have done extremely well over the past number of years. We've had classrooms and students in first place across the entire nation, and many of our classrooms at the elementary and middle school placing within that top 25 schools within the nation. Again, it is a platform and a resource that our teachers and students use both at home and at school. It's an independent activity that can be monitored and supported by the teacher based on student need. So we feel strongly that this is a product that has provided our students and teachers access to a tool that might otherwise be a challenge to individualize for our students. The other piece that I do want to mention is the founder and creator of this particular program is a local resident, and therefore has been very supportive of our school's students and teachers, both coming in for PD and working with individual students in classrooms. So we're appreciative of that support within the program as well. Thank you. And I believe the next slide is mine also. And this agreement is also an agreement that we've had for a number of years here in Easton, and I would say it's a very critical agreement that we're seeking renewal on. It's our agreement with the Head Start of Easton. That program has 2 classrooms that we provide in-kind classrooms within the district, one at Cheston and one at Paxenosa. And as you may or may not know, Head Start is an organization that for many, many years has been supporting families that have economic challenges, both with social, emotional, physical needs, but most importantly with some academic needs. And for the students who are blessed to be part of that program, it really supports them, with some of their foundational skills. So as they transition into our school age programs, they find that transition a little bit more easy to make. So that is, again, a program that we ask that you consider and renew for us. At this point, I think we're going to pause and see if anyone has questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Sure.
Any questions or clarifications that we can answer for you as a team?
On the first in math, I've seen over the last couple of years we've done very well in comparisons both regionally and nationwide with other schools. Maybe just as a follow-up, we could get an idea of how many other schools participate in this type of program, because if you're meeting the top 25 in a large number of schools that are being evaluated, that's certainly significant.
Yeah, I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but I can certainly get them for you. It is nationwide, so it is in the thousands of schools that participate. So I do have those statistics from last year, just not readily at my fingertips tonight.
Certainly understood, Ms. Piazza. I just think it would accent more if we're scoring in the top 25 with the numbers that are being compared to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I will share that with information with you. Thank you.
And then just one more thing I'd like to add for the group is when we bring these items to the board for our recommendation, I just wanted to share with everybody that the internal team here, when we look at different contracts and different software that we want to recommend to purchase, we look at 3 guiding questions essentially, and it's how does that impact instruction, how does that transform instruction in the classroom? That's one of the guiding questions we ask ourselves. Number 2 is why do we support this software over other software that might be similar? And then how do we measure its impact? Those are 3 questions that we've begun to look at, and there are some pieces of software that we may not bring forth for consideration moving forward, but based around those 3 guiding questions. So I want to share that with the board, and we can certainly move on into the next piece of tonight's presentation, which are contract renewals from our student supports in regard to Intermediate Unit 20. So for this section, you'll see multiple contract renewals, and Ms. Dufour will be speaking about those briefly.
For a one-to-one associate teacher at Colonial Academy. They'll be providing direct services to a special education student that is in a partial hospitalization program. In order for us to put a one-to-one associate teacher in place, the IEP team has to collect data, and it monitors the student's behavioral and academic progress. If the IEP team deems that a one-to-one is necessary or appropriate, then that's the only way that we can include this in the IEP, and we have to make sure that we are ensuring FAPE, or free and appropriate public education. So as you see those one-to-one contracts come throughout the school year, that is an IEP team decision after a good deal of data has been collected and analyzed. So that is the first one that you're seeing there. The second one here is for an itinerant special education teacher, and this is an emotional support teacher at Palmer Elementary School, and they will be working with students who are in the regular education environment for at least 80% of the day. They'll work closely with building administration and classroom teachers in order to offer the students the most effective and appropriate supports possible. This next contract goes with the last contract. This individual is an itinerant mental health worker. They'll be working with the emotional support special education teacher in that classroom at Palmer Elementary School. They provide assistance with daily activities and the administration of therapeutic care. So they'll be working with all students within that classroom. Our next contract is a teacher and support for the Northampton County Prison. This contract allows for a special education teacher and related support services to work with our students. Those supports could be counseling, OT, PT, speech, things like that. The special education teacher case manages and monitors progress. They help to shape the educational program of the students. And they're also responsible for ensuring that all documentation and paperwork is in compliance with all state mandates. That's primarily IEPs and reevaluations. The educational placement of students at the prison is considered to be full-time emotional support. Okay, our next one is just for our therapeutic emotional support classrooms. This contract enables us to offer these therapeutic supports to students who have significant emotional needs within an emotional support setting. Each of the emotional support classroom implements a 3-staff model. So you have the special education teacher, an associate teacher, and also a mental health worker. Okay, I believe this is our last contract here. This is for the IDEA Part B sub-grant. These funds are used to assist districts in providing special education and related services to students with disabilities. The funding must only be used to pay the excess costs of providing FAPE to students, teachers, administrators, related services, again, speech therapists, school psychologists, even materials and supplies for students with disabilities. The IU is responsible to administer the funds in accordance with IDE guidelines, and the district is a subrecipient for the grant. So that's the language that you're seeing in that contract.
Yeah, so before we move on to a team share out, are there any clarifications we can offer or any questions that you may have as a board in regard to the contract renewals that we plan to place on the September board meeting agenda? We just felt like it was extremely important for us to place all renewals on the standing committee agenda, simply to share to be transparent, to say this is what we're going to place on the agenda for approval. And we may not have answers tonight, but we can certainly get those answers, before next meeting. So I wanted to give it, a little bit of time. If there's any questions we can answer, please feel free to ask us. I see Ms. Sayago speaking, but I can't hear her. Can we?
If Alyssa has to do it, I'll tell her.
I can't hear her.
I said unmute.
Item that is board policy to place that on the agenda for approval. And as I mentioned, Dr. Keegan and I had an opportunity to get information about each of those contracts in detail. So if there's no other questions, I'd like to invite Mr. Zayatic and his team to go around and give us a sense of what's been going on with academics and technology over the past couple of months.
Appreciate that, Ms. Sayago. Thank you. So I'd like to just start by thanking the team that is here in place. As many of you know, this is approximately my second month here, and I really can't say that I've ever worked with a better team. So I just want to say I thank all of them for all the work that they've done, and they've been a true pleasure to work with, and I want to recognize that publicly. So, as we started to enter into the school year, there were a lot of things that needed to be done. And from our last, I'll say, town hall meeting in regard to the remote option and rescheduling, what ended up being close to 2,500 students. Those of you that have worked in schools, the impact that has and the great monumental task that is to schedule students and make sure that everything aligns. So, while we were planning to do that, there were still other things that we need to take care of, including professional development for our teachers, looking at instructional technology to support those, our goals that we want to have as a district, and then also just to situate what does instruction really look like in our district moving forward. So I would like our team to just take maybe 2 minutes each and just share out just a little bit that they've been involved with, and we will start with Mr. Bonilla, and I'll ask him to start speaking about professional development as we entered into the school year. So Mr. Bonilla, please take it away.
Good evening, everyone. So essentially for the beginning of the year, the committee group met together to discuss needs. We had decided upon offering a voluntary week prior to the required week of professional development, and in doing so also modified the school year change to afford more time for teachers to prepare for this unprecedented year. The voluntary week basically was split up into 4 strands, connecting remotely and communicating remotely, delivery of instruction, designing courses and lessons, and then demonstration of learning and assessment. And then we offer courses. They're led by Eastern Area School District teachers, and then also some of the supervisors. So both Ann McIntyre, Mrs. Arntz, myself were involved in offering some of these course opportunities, inviting people in by level or generally speaking. It was very well supported, with some of the sessions exceeding the 100 Zoom participant limit. We also then made sure that there were asynchronous opportunities during that week, offered from Patton and also from local IUs, that people can then also delve into some tools. And then all the things that were offered by teachers who were doing it live were recorded and then put into a common access page that Mrs. McIntyre was able to put together and post, in which people could then go back in and access that after the fact. And also then still receive credit even though they could not attend the time that it was offered live. This then led into the compulsory professional development schedule that was then published out to the entire staff with principal input, so that things could be fitted in during the regular week, prepping for the school year, which began today. And in that instance, we had principals leading where that was allocated, with, of course, the required things that were coming from HR. A lot of that came down to required tech tools, because as we know, the remote learning option was a huge response in that regard. And since we also moved to a hybrid model, we also wanted to make sure that teachers felt positive that if they received anything during the voluntary week, they could revisit it during the professional development week and shore up those skills to make sure that we had a better transition this year than what we have been afforded the opportunity under the continuity of education system remodel that occurred in the spring when we closed out March 13th. I think I hit it in 2 minutes.
We're just trying to take over the next section, so we're good.
Well done, Hector.
This is Mrs. Arntz. At the secondary level, we had great attendance to our voluntary professional development and lots of great feedback about that. Teachers really felt that the tools presented were going to be helpful to them to the start of the school year and trying to navigate this new look for their classrooms and their students. Starting off with our professional development in the building last week, our in-services, we tied 4 strands of effective instruction to our professional development, and each day we focused on one of those strands where principals led sessions discussing things like how to best communicate with your students, how to present your lessons, how to organize your lessons. And then after they met with the teachers and the principals, they then came into technology tool sessions that related to those topics. So we were very nicely able to tie the tools to what was being discussed, and the teachers felt that that was very effective in helping them to make those connections and then bring them to their classrooms. So the goal was for teachers to have 2 weeks of instruction that they felt confident in implementing for the students. And speaking with some teachers today, they felt very prepared, still a little overwhelmed with the new look, but they did feel very prepared for the start of the school year. They were very happy to see their students again back in the building and just hear the hustle and bustle of what usually is in our schools. Thank you.
Hi, it's Ann McIntyre. I'd just like to say that it was very helpful to have those extra days at the beginning of the school year to give the teachers some extra time, because there's a lot of things out there that they need to learn with technology that they may not have had so much time to learn in the spring when this all came about. So special thanks to our tech experts and our teaching staff who went above and beyond. We really have a wealth of knowledge in this district, and to hear them do their presentations on something they feel so strongly and passionately about was really very inspiring. So thank you to them.
All right, thank you. This is Tracy Piazza. From the elementary perspective, just a quick share on the options that our families had and our teachers are working through this year. Obviously, our parents had 3 choices. One was cyber education, remote education, or hybrid education. And today we saw that come to fruition. It was no small task, and I do want to thank the entire team, principals, our curriculum instruction team, our administrative professionals, our teachers for their suggestions and flexibility, because it would not have gone off as smoothly as it did today without the support of everyone involved. So thank you to everyone. To give you a quick overview of the elementary level, if our families chose the hybrid option, your students are coming to school 2 days a week and then working remotely 3 days. So you either are coming to school on Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. This week being a little bit different, you received a Connect Ed call, so just a little reminder about that this week your Monday, Tuesday students are actually coming on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday will be here on Thursday, Friday. But typically your students are here 2 days a week. Those days that they are here in person, they're following a relatively normal academic schedule where they're like reading language arts, math, science, social studies, special meaning art, library, music, or phys ed are all conducted in person. And they're also receiving their support services such as special education, English language special education, gifted education, or interventions, all in person. The days that those students are working remotely, the teachers are logging in via Zoom for the content areas of reading and math to give them quick mini lessons on what content they will find within their Seesaw or Google platform. And then the students will work independently on those assignments and receive teacher feedback there the next day. And then the opposite happens for our Thursday, Friday group. So when they're here, they receive the in-person instruction with some mini lessons via Zoom, and so on and so forth. On Wednesdays, all of our students in the hybrid model are working remotely, as are our teachers. And on those days, our students will receive some instruction via Zoom that includes a time where their entire class, both hybrid A and hybrid B, come together to build a little community, school community, classroom community with all the students, though even those that they don't see on a regular basis in person. And then there is some core instruction happening via Zoom as well, and that's in the areas of language arts and math. At this point, that's core instruction, whole group core instruction. As the teachers become a little bit more familiar with their students and identify the individual needs for support or extension, our teachers will switch from that whole group model into a small group model where they will meet with your students in groups of 5 or less to work on specific individual skills. And then again, when they're not working in those in those Zoom sessions, they would be working in their Seesaw or Google Classroom. And the teachers will have office hours on that day then to support families and students with questions that they may have throughout the course of the day. And Mr. Puckett, I almost skipped one. Our remote instruction really has our teachers working, some of them in our school buildings and some of them from home, and teaching the curriculum, reading, language arts, math, science, social studies, and all the other ones that I mentioned, your library, art, music, phys ed, as well as the support areas, but doing that remotely. So their day is a little bit longer time frames of Zoom sessions. So their core instruction is happening live via Zoom, and then their independent practice is happening in their Google platform or Seesaw platform. So theirs is, again, relatively traditional in terms of the content being delivered, but it's all being delivered via Zoom or those online platforms. Thank you. Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Tracy. Good evening. As my colleagues had previously mentioned, a lot of our focus leading up to this is making sure that teachers were as prepared as we could make them. And so professional development was a key focus for us, as was mentioned by my colleagues, and just wanted to reinforce the idea that we wanted to make sure teachers had that pedagogy and practice before and engaging in the tool, as Mrs. Arntz mentioned. So taking a look about how we communicate with students, what's best to communicate with students, and then providing teachers with tools in which to do that. Talking about the best way to deliver content in a remote and in a hybrid format, and then giving them tools to do that. And so that was really an emphasis over those professional development days. So I really have to thank the board for giving us the opportunity to put together those 5 days. And all of those individuals came together, this team and the Techsperts, to put those trainings together. And the principals, as mentioned by Mrs. Arntz, to deliver a lot of that professional development under the pedagogy and practice before moving on to discuss those tools with our Techsperts. So thank you to the board, and thank you to those folks who prepared that. But there was really a lot that went into that, even the week before in the volunteer professional development, the professional development. So it's important to mention and thank those individuals for their support. The second thing that I want to speak about this evening is the numbers, because I think it's important to to recognize what we had to accomplish. At the high school, we had over 612 students to schedule. At the middle school, 612 students to schedule for remote. That would leave us on the hybrid schedule on A day on hybrid A, which is the A to K, 657 students, and on B day 638 students. Compared to the 2,035 kids that would be there on a daily basis, it makes it a lot more manageable to follow those safety procedures. At the high school, 810 students selected the remote option. 936 are in school A through L, and 972 L to Z. So a pretty good balance there as well. But there's 2,890 plus kids in Eastern Area High School. So moving that down to 936 makes it a lot more manageable to keep it within those CDC guidelines and keep our kids safe. But the scheduling aspect of it, can't go without noticing. The guidance counselors, Rochelle DeRamus, who is our Power School guru in the district, spent hours upon hours making sure that these schedules were prepared. And I want to thank the parents and the families for their patience in working with our secondary administrators in getting all of these schedules completed. We had to move a lot of schedules around for students that were already done and completed to allot for these remote schedule adjustments. And we basically took 2 weeks to do a process that typically takes us anywhere from 2 to 4 months. So I want to thank those individuals who supported it, and thanks the families for their patience as we continue to move forward. Now the focus is really on the instruction. So as my colleagues mentioned, the instructional model at the secondary level, we have students that are fully remote. What that looks like is 10 to 15 minutes of direct instruction for a 40-minute period, maybe a little bit longer for a double block in ELA and math, and then some independent practice supported by that teacher. That independent practice could be students working on their own with a follow-up Zoom session, or they're using the Google Classroom platform to submit answers, to complete a Google form and give feedback to their teacher, and then the teachers are following up with those students in those remote settings. So that would apply to any student that's remote on a full-time basis, or any student that is learning remotely at home when they're not in person. When the students are in person, that focus in the classroom really is on that concept of the day, allowing for that small group instruction now that those numbers have been reduced, and teachers are still Zooming and checking in with those students who are learning remotely. One of the other things that I wanted to make sure, I mentioned, was to, I lost my thought here, is to emphasize this, the safety plans at both levels and the review of those. And today we got to see those efforts play out, and it went very smooth. It was very quiet. Unusually quiet for us in education. We opened up our doorways to 2,900 kids at the high school and 2,100 kids at the middle school. It was great to see smiling faces. There was just a lot less of them in the building. So we're looking forward to continuing to work on that instructional model. And we want to thank you for your patience as we continue to do something that we've really never done before. Thank you.
So that is it for our share out this evening. I'd like to say thank you to not only the team members, the teachers, the parents, students, and community overall, but also to our committee and to the board of directors for allowing us the time this evening to share out what we have been working on the past few weeks. So we want to recognize all the work that everyone's been doing. So thank you.
Minute instruction time. and then the remainder of the time was basically for any kind of independent work, classroom, or maybe even a follow-up with Zoom. I just want to make sure that that was what you said. I'm just taking some notes here.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I said. The expectation, there is that direct instruction component, that mini lesson, if you will, followed by that independent practice. And that support looks kind of two ways. Number one, it looks like teachers staying on in that Zoom session, for example, and following up with students, or other opportunities for those students to check in with their teacher, through other means of formative assessment. That would occur. And then it also looks like small group work during the course of the week that the teacher would set aside to meet with individual groups of students, as Ms. Piazza mentioned, at the elementary level as well.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. I just wanted to make sure I got that correctly. Thank you.
And Mr. Snyder, if I can clarify for you, because I'm not sure if Mike hit on it, but that was 15 minutes per 40-minute block of time. So as the high school kids are switching from teacher to teacher every 40 or 80 minutes, then it's another Zoom session for those 10 to 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, yeah, I think he did say double block in his first thing. So, okay, but thank you for clarifying the time. I didn't write the block time. So that's per 40-minute block. Okay, thank you.
Per class and their schedule, Mr. Snyder.
Okay, per class. Thank you for clarifying.
I have a question. Does anyone have any updates on the progress of the Easton Cyber Academy?
I can give you those numbers for the secondary level, Mr. Whitman, but I believe Mr. Cron is here this evening. At the secondary level, we have 127 students from the middle school and 180 students from the high school. So we're right around 300 students at the secondary level, Mr. Whitman.
How does that compare to last year's numbers?
I want to say we had 60 kids. Tracy could, or Ryan, if you're on.
Yeah, just under 100, I believe, last year.
So it looks like we're building something.
Yeah. At the elementary level, around 230, I believe. But Ryan, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to get unmuted. Yes, so correct. Last year we averaged we ended the year at 77 total students, and we averaged throughout the year, any one given time was 77 to 100 students. So we are up exponentially. At this point, we are at 563 total students.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Meg, if I could just jump
at this point.
I don't want to prolong this.
Go ahead.
But I think there's, first of all, phenomenal presentation by the curriculum team. So thrilled at the way they've come together and have really hit the ground running this year. So thank you to Mr. Ziadik and that entire team. But I still also have to point out our building level administrators have been working countless hours through weekends, in the evening, through the holiday weekend to pull all this off. So we certainly can't, ignore the fact that they've been working so hard to make the opening of schools as really seamless as it was today. And then going all the way back to the pandemic team, who worked so hard to put this plan in place that came to full fruition today at a very high level. So just so many people have had their hands in the pot, and just tremendous gratitude to all of them, and kudos and well done, because our kids are doing well as a result of all that hard work. And I think I can tell you our teachers felt good today. I visited every building, and there were many pregame jitters, so to speak, the first day of school, butterflies, but that just shows you they still care regardless of whether they're veterans or newbies. But a lot of excitement in the air, and it was good to see a lot of smiling eyes peeking out over those masks. So well done to everybody.
Great, thank you. And I also just wanted to thank everyone for all their work this summer. I was particularly impressed with the professional development offerings going into this school year, and thank all of the teachers who volunteered their time to help educate their colleagues on the tools that they are using, and all the many teachers that took advantage of it, and the absolute Herculean effort that it took to schedule all of these children by hand in many cases. And I know that there's still a lot to be worked out, and I think that as as we actually start doing this, you know, people will be able to start working out some of those details. So I just want to continue to ask everyone for some continued patience and flexibility as we get through this first week. I think it's going to get better each week as we go along here. So before we end, I just want to ask if there's any comments from the public on the agenda items that we have discussed from our committee this evening, any of the contracts that we have talked about, all of which are voting items.
And I'd just like to, before we move on to that, I'd just like to say the pandemic team all summer long, unbelievable the amount of work they put in and the thoughtfulness and the devil's advocacy, so to speak, that was going on as well. It was unbelievable. And to have all those people working that hard all summer long just makes you feel proud to be part of this whole effort. And also, not to forget, being a guy that was in charge of the guidance department at a high school one time, I know when it comes down to scheduling in a regular year, right? It's very, very difficult, but, you know, give them the accolades they deserve too. The administrators work with the guidance department and everybody else in there, but you know, what a great job this was. And it's amazing how hard people want to work for our kids in this community. It's just really, really nice to see. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Does it appear that we have any members of the public who'd like to comment?
I will unmute a member of the public. And Mr. Corvitsky, you have, you'll have 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Kulchitsky. I have a 5th grader at Edward Tracy Elementary. Last year, she was working with a speech therapist. I had not heard any word regarding curriculum, regarding working with therapists, so I reached out to her last year's speech teacher and got a bounce back from the district email. I reached out to her on LinkedIn, and she said she had switched district. Regarding curriculum, what's the plan to get the speech therapists and other special needs programs going back again? She's also, my daughter, I should say, she's on the remote option at this point.
So I don't know, Kara, if you're able to address that. Okay.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. I was trying to get unmuted there.
That's okay.
Yeah, so your case manager should be reaching out to you this week to discuss what those speech therapy sessions will look like. But I can certainly take down your information and make sure that we make that contact right away just to straighten that out. Those sessions will be occurring over remote or in-person sessions. So we will be sure that we communicate that to you, and I apologize if that had happened. But we'll be in contact. We'll make sure also the case manager gets in contact with you as well.
I appreciate that. Thanks for the follow-up.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Kara.
Mm-hmm.
Did we have any other public comment at this time? Okay, great, thank you. Seeing none, that concludes the Academics, Education, Technology, and Student Supports Committee agenda this evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Iago. We will move to Budget and Finance with Mrs. Hess.
Sure, thank you. And just to give a little update, I found out the numbers for the Math 24, and just, you know, it's over 4,000 school districts nationwide. So I guess I'll be passing it over to Mike to have the technology purchase for the monitors for admin professionals and the CIT request for tax exemption and the bond funding review.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hess. Just 3 items tonight. The technology purchase, we needed to purchase monitors with the renewal for the staff computers. All the admin professionals receive laptops to be more mobile, to be more efficient. And but we wanted to also purchase the monitors for while they're at their desks. If anybody has a laptop knows all day staring at a laptop screen. So we put that in the budget for the technology department. We received quotes, and this vendor is the low quote. It is also CoStar's state contract purchasing. So we'd like to put that on the agenda for the 22nd for board approval.
Anyone have any questions on that?
We discussed this before, right? Did we look at this a couple of weeks ago or a month ago? This is for the people that are going back and forth? That's correct. All right. Thank you.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Any others? Okay, Mike, you want to do the?
CIT, I think everyone knows that they purchase properties throughout the community and their construction program, and they build houses. But they don't and should not have to pay taxes on that. There's a process to go through with the county, and this property missed a step a couple of years ago, and we were hoping that they would be able to go through the paperwork through the county, but because of the timeline and how long it took, we actually have to present it to our board to formally approve the exoneration of taxes for the CIT. And when the house, for those years, the house has been purchased since and will be on the tax rolls or currently on the tax rolls. So we just need a formal approval from the board to exonerate for those years.
Okay, any questions from board members?
How many years was it on for the house to be built?
I'm not sure how long it took them, but they were on the tax rolls for the 2017 and 18 year. Since 19, they've been on. They was CIT for 17 and 18. It was purchased in 19, and have since been on our tax, on the tax rolls from the owner, the resident.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any others? Okay.
That wasn't me.
Somebody had a question. Okay, so the bond funding?
Where's the trees?
So Mr. Phillips, something came up, he's unable to log on tonight. So I'm going to be presenting this. Really kind of just going back and what we've done before. We have two bonds, a bond, the 2013 series. We're looking at refunding them. We have approximately 3 years left on those bonds for payments. And but with the interest rates, they are available for refunding, refinancing, however you want to put it. And we estimate that we'll be able to save in excess of $200,000 over the next 3 years with this refunding. So we're going to be asking for a resolution at the September 22nd meeting to move forward with this refunding. I'll stop there before I go into the new bond purchasing. If there's any questions on the refunding, we've been, I think over the last 5 or 6 years, I know it's probably more, but I think we're around $5 to $6 million we saved with refunding all the bonds that we've had. Mr. Phillips and his team have done a great job keeping us on target with the refinancing whenever we're allowed to.
Okay, any questions on that portion of it? No? Okay, Mike, you want to go further?
Yeah, so we're also going to be looking for authorization at the September 22nd meeting to go out and purchase new bonds with the impending construction of the new Palmer School. We need to borrow for that now. It's part of the overall plan. And we want to go out and borrow for that. We cannot borrow and settle anymore in 2020. And what we're able to do, because of the attractive interest rates, we're able to go out now and we can lock in a rate and we don't have to close until 2021. And all projections believe that the interest rates are still going to be this competitive in 21, but we feel we want to test the market now, see what the rates come in at, and go out for a major portion of the cost for the Palmer Elementary construction. And we'll be presenting the resolution for that from Mr. Phillips.
Okay, does anyone have any, oh, sorry.
I have a question. What is our rating, Mike?
We are AA plus.
Okay.
AA2.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, are you finished?
I have one more thing I just want to mention with the committee. I'm going to reach out to you all in the next couple of days. I'm going to set up a meeting where we can meet either by Zoom or, at the board office. If we can meet and kind of put together an agenda, a game plan for this fiscal year and what we're looking to do moving forward this year.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Any questions, comments from board members? Okay, do we have anybody from the public for finance agenda items?
Or type in the chat, I would unmute you. And I'm putting up stuff.
Okay, seeing none, then we will have at the approval for the monitors. I'm sorry. Am I here? Okay, I'm hearing. I wasn't sure someone's speaking. Okay, so we have approval for the monitors, the CIT, the resolution for the refunding, and the purchase of the new bonds. That's it. Concludes our portion for the finance.
Thank you, Mrs. Hess. We'll move to buildings and grounds. Dr. Keegan.
Thank you, Mr. Chando. Just wanted to remind the board that we've been meeting every other Tuesday during the summer. Basically, I think we skipped one Tuesday only because school was starting up and everybody was getting too busy. But we go ahead and look at all the projects and so forth that we have going. Tonight we have Palmer Elementary School page turn and a recap of the summer projects. I think maybe Mike, I don't know, is Josh going to do the Palmer Elementary School page turn, or I'm not sure who we chose to do that.
It'll be Josh Gray, Joe Balsamo, and Danielle DeLeo.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Hello. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody for allowing us to work on this exciting project along the past few projects that we've had the opportunity to work on. Just to introduce myself, for those who don't know me, my name is Joseph Balsamo with Alloway 5. Usually I'm sure you've all seen me around. I'm usually the guy that's with a pretty face sitting next to Randy. But for today, myself and Danny will be walking us through the new Palmer Elementary. Okay, this first slide, and Josh, I believe, is also here from Dewey Engineering. He will probably jump in on a few slides and may have some comments as well. This first slide shows the overall district for Easton Area School District. Over the past few years, as part of the capital improvement plan, the district has updated many of the elementary schools, and it's as you can see now, it's Palmer's time. This is an aerial view of the existing site and existing school. Just try and get everybody situated with the site. We have Route 22 on the right, and that's Green Pond on the left side of the site. Okay. This is the proposed site for the new Palmer Elementary. Again, the same orientation you can see. We have Route 22 on the right and Green Pond on the left. Nope, go back. You can see it's situated very similarly to the existing building with a much more efficient plan. You have the bus drop-off directly in front of the building, and then the parent drop-off loop to the south of the building. And then on either side, you have a teacher parking. To the far towards 22 there, we have a multi-purpose field and the irrigation area as well. You can go to the next slide. I believe Josh was going to speak a little bit about the lead in building design that we're going after with Palmer Elementary.
Yes, thanks, Joe, and thanks for being so humble to include yourself as the handsome guy next to Randy. I was going to take that title, but yeah. So just for everybody's sake, just taking a step back, if you remember, Alloy 5 has prepared these presentations in the past, what they call the 5 Guide. And as we move ahead and start getting into the bidding phase, hopefully with Palmer shortly, we wanted to just update the board with some very robust and realistic images and just kind of get any new members up to speed as far as what some of the design considerations and features are going to be with the new school. And Joe and Danny especially are going to walk you through that. But I did want to just take a moment to recognize that Palmer was successful in getting an ACE grant. You might remember with the Paxinosa renovation, there was a grant opportunity. It's through the state, DCED within the state. It's an opportunity to obtain grant dollars with green buildings. So in this case, by hitting a LEED Gold certification level, the district is eligible for about $1.3 million from the state for LEED construction. So obviously from a design and implementation standpoint, LEED building is going to be in the forefront. You know, the district really, even absent of LEED building, the district really made an effort to committing themselves to providing facilities with the recent renovations to the elementary schools in particular, with sustainable, energy efficient facilities. You know, even though they're not tagged with the LEED label, still very efficient, very sustainable. Just so happened that we were fortunate enough at this point to apply for and ultimately get the ACE grant. So, you know, as we move forward with the final design and construction updates, you'll be hearing a lot about the LEED progress. And I'll just kick it back to Randy or I'm sorry, Joe and Danny at this point.
Next few slides that we'll look at are just some views of the exterior. This shot is looking from the classroom wing back towards the main entrance with the canopy. With the exterior, we've used a combination of brick and metal panel, and we've chosen some of the shades of the Palmer Elementary green, although some of them look a little yellow in this, at least on my screen. I don't know what they look like on your screen. So you can go to the next one. This is a view looking directly at the main entrance with the main office and admin area to the left there, and the cafeteria to the right, and the gym in the far background. And this view is looking at the main office with the classroom wing in the background. If we're moving too fast, anybody can tell us to stop, ask a question. We've moved on to the plans here. This is the overall first floor plan. We'll have some enlarged area plans that Danny will probably talk to discuss some of the furniture layouts and finish selections. So as we come through the main entrance vestibule, I don't know if I don't know how to point to it. So, yeah, if you could run the, I think, Alyssa, do you have the cursor? Could you put it on the main entrance vestibule?
I don't have the cursor.
So to the left of the plan, we'll start off at the left of the plan then, and this area is the kitchen servery area, and then the cafeteria to the right of that. And then sliding over, you have the faculty dining area, and then right next to that is the vestibule and main lobby area. So this is a secure lobby, a similar setup to Cheston, where you'll have the vestibule, then the man lock, and with the admin area to the right of that, they have visual access from the exterior into the building, all the way into the building. Also the health suite there in that section. Sliding south of the cafeteria is the gym. One thing you'll notice is the cafeteria is open all the way to the gym, which allows for, I guess, pre-COVID-19 larger events. We could have access from the exterior and have staging area into the cafeteria to the gym. To the right of the gym, we have some of the other classrooms for music and art. And then central is the media center. And then sliding to the right, as you go down the corridor, are the classroom wings. So the classroom wings on the first floor will house kindergarten and first grade. And from there, if you go upstairs, we'll go next page. Second floor, all classroom wings are stacked and very similar in layout. So up here, you'll have the second grade classrooms and the third grade classrooms, along with SGI and special ed. And each of the classroom wings, there's a stacked gang bathroom, all centralized within the classroom wings. And then if you go to the third floor, again, you'll see it's exactly like the second floor, housing the fourth grade and fifth grade classrooms. So if we go to the next slide, this is probably where I'll allow Danny to start walking us through. She's very familiar with the layouts of the classrooms and the finishes. Danny?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for letting me join you tonight to go over some of these plans and renderings that we're going to show you. Just to start, to give you a basis, if you've been through Cheston yet, or if you remember some of the plans from before, we really tried to keep consistency with the same amount of casework and the layouts for these classrooms. So you'll see some of those similar things, and then we were just trying to play around with some different, the same finishes, but some different colors and different patterns. So for here, we just have a typical pre-K and kindergarten layout. Obviously, this was before, this was pre-COVID. If you've seen how some of the classrooms are set up now, those desks have been split and there's sort of 2 students at each. So I'm sure that could be adjusted as needed if we're still in that situation. We have typical for all these classrooms going forward, there's roughly 30 cubbies. We have the shelves above the cubbies, and then just sort of a typical L-shaped casework area with a toilet located in these classrooms. We can move to the next slide. And here's sort of the typical layout for what is the pre-K classroom and also the kindergarten classroom. So just like Cheston and PAX, where we had colors dedicated for each of the grades indicating them, we're looking to continue that same thing within Palmer. So here, just like in the other schools, we're using blue for kindergarten and pre-K, and we have a new pattern on the floor with just one VCT color, and then the edge banding for the classroom. In Cheston, we had multiple VCT colors. Sadly, the manufacturer has discontinued a lot of the colors, so we've been trying to find a workaround with that, and we're trying to still play with those items. You can move to the next slide. Here we have a typical sort of kindergarten and first grade layout. It's pretty similar to pre-K. We're just showing some different options with how the furniture can lay out, but all the casework is pretty much the same. And we can move to the next slide. And here we're just showing what a typical first grade classroom would look like with the purple color scheme. Then we move on to our typical 2nd through 5th grade layouts. So the desks change from sort of those little groups to individual. And again, these are set up pre-COVID as well. Our casework starts to change a little bit within these classrooms. We no longer have the individual toilet room for these rooms. And then we still maintain the 30 cubbies and sort of that typical casework wall right near where the entrance of the classroom is. So these next few slides, we're just going to go through what 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade look like with their color schemes. So here we have 2nd grade with green, 3rd grade with orange, 4th grade yellow, and then 5th grade red. And that pretty much sums up the classrooms. So as the students are moving through to those classrooms, just like in Cheston, we wanted to create the ability that before they're approaching that hallway to where their classroom wing is, they know what grade is down there from the color. So we started playing with the alcoves with ceramic tile and using some like 2 tones for each color, as you'll see as we move up to the other floors. And we are really playing with the terrazzo colors as well and using those as wayfinding throughout the school. And you'll see that as we move to other areas. And just like in Cheston, we have started to design a 3-story mural. And this one sort of is more on the theme of transportation and navigation, which we'll touch upon a bit more as we're moving through the rest of the school. So here's that was sort of looking down the kindergarten classroom. Now we're going to move up to the 2nd floor, and we're going to be looking down what the 2nd grade corridor classroom wing looks like, which is the green. And then you can start to see how the mural is moving up. It was sort of had like an underwater theme. Now we're moving to land. And then on the 3rd floor, we'll be moving to sort of sky and space. And here's where the 4th grade hallway would be, and the 5th grade as well. So now we're going to move back downstairs to some of the special areas. So here we have the media center, which is pretty typical from what we've previously have shown. I believe the next slide, yes, it's showing how we can push the tables and chairs to sort of create a story time area within that space as needed for some of the younger kids. And then these next 2 slides are just showing this in a 3D view without any finishes, just so we can specifically call out where casework is being placed and where certain furniture is that we're looking at. This is all going to be very much the same as Cheston with the same millwork bookshelves in the fiction section, and then sort of those curved pieces are those mobile bookcases that can be moved around as needed or adjusted. Again, this is just kind of looking at it from a different view. This starts to call out some of the casework within that circulation desk. Again, it's all typical to Cheston. And then if you notice at the back near the teaching wall, we have a little door, and there's a storage room for additional storage of materials. And you can see what that room looks like actually to the right. Yep, right there. Again, very similar to Cheston, where we just have additional storage space for any books that aren't going to be in circulation or that need to be fixed. And then here we just have, we're going to have 2 renderings of the space. This is kind of when you first walk into the main area. So we kind of have a little seating area built into where those mobile displays are, mobile bookshelves are. And then this back area is showing a little bit of the teaching area. And we started to play around with some different ceiling tiles and getting some color up in that area as well. Then we have the art room. Pretty standard and typical to what we had at Cheston. We have a kiln down at the bottom and casework on both sides of the classroom as well. And then I believe the next slide is just showing that casework in a little more detail, so it's easier to understand. Sometimes I know it's a little hard to read in 2D. And then the last slide for this is showing what the art room is going to look like. So we're starting to play with having kind of like the Palmer green, but also we're introducing sort of this lime or brighter green with it. And we're using that in some of these special spaces, as you noticed in the library before. Next, we'll move on to the music rooms. So we have the band room, which is central, and then we have the chorus room right below it, and they have a door connecting between the two of them. If you go out into the hallway, there is a ramp that leads onto the stage, which is easy access from both of those rooms. And we can move to the next slide. Thank you. Within here, we have seating for about 40 students, and then we have the same casework acoustic cabinets that we have at Cheston that we're looking to use for Palmer as well. And then here's just some 3D views of that and the casework that's also in that classroom. And then here's what a 3D view starts to look like for the space. We started to play with a different color palette within this room. So we were looking at using blues and oranges, and you'll see when we move to the chorus room, it's kind of like the inverse, where the blue is on the floor and the orange is on the walls. And here's a typical chorus room, just a few areas of casework and open shelving as needed, and the risers. And then when we move to the next slide, here's what that chorus room is starting to come together to look like. Then we have our gym and stage. Joe pretty much touched upon this from before, so I believe we can just move to the next slide to show you the rendering of it. Pretty similar to Cheston with the wood flooring. We'll have pops of green and gray and the lime green within this space. Here we have the plan of the cafeteria, just showing how the tables would be laid out pre-COVID, as well as faculty dining. And then within the administration space, we just wanted to highlight this. So the green area is what the admin spaces are. So your offices, guidance, the conference room, kitchenette, those spaces. And then if you move to the next slide, this other green area is where that health suite is. So there is a connection between them, but they are separated at the same time. And then here we have the main lobby. So in Palmer, there was that compass that had existed, and we were trying to recreate that, but in a bit simpler, and using the Palmer green and then this introduction of this brighter green with it. And we have these green colored terrazzo line coming off of that compass as wayfinding for the kids for where to go and where things are located. So you kind of see one's going off underneath that wood area to the gym and the cafeteria, the other two at the left, the one's going down to the specials, and the other one brings them down to the classroom wings. This space, we're still working out some items with having the plaque, the lead sign, and some other details. And then on the next slide, when you turn the corner and start to go down the hallway, we're looking to have this timeline wall of elements from the old Palmer School that can be put on display. And we're still working as to what some of those items would be, physical photographs and things like that. But you can start to see down in this hallway, when you reach that rectangular area where the blue and the purple were, that's where the color terrazzo changes and it breaks off down into those classroom wings. And then that kind of wraps it up interior-wise. If there is any questions, feel free to ask. If not, I'm going to pass it back to Josh so he can wrap this up with the timeline and budget.
Okay, thanks, Danny. So as I've said, I mean, we're getting to the point now where our design phase is just about wrapped up and preparing for the bidding phase. So, you know, as everybody's aware, it was quite the process getting through land development and getting to the point where we have site drawings, especially, that are reviewed and approved by the township. And there's still a portion of work related to improvements along Green Pond Road that at this point are still being worked out with the township. So we are working towards finalizing those details. There will be some coordination involved with the township in order to wrap that up. However, we are hopeful that we can get that final PennDOT improvement portion completed soon so that we can confirm this bidding and permitting time, which we had identified as October and November. And, we'd really like to see it be completed and out to bid at this point, because the first stage of this project really is going to be the abatement of the existing Palmer School, which, as you can imagine, being from the early 50s and the original construction, there are materials in there that need to be abated before we can even demolish that building. And I say that because those are activities, if we can really take advantage of the winter months to do, we can have the site prepared to start footings for the new construction come spring of 21. So really, we're looking at, as I said, abatement, demolition over the colder months between about December and into March. There is a little bit of work related to there was an old oil tank on the site that needs a final closure report, which will happen after demolition, and some geotechnical investigation to make sure that the new building footprint, which essentially is on top of the existing, has been investigated to the fullest once that building is down. So we do have some time identified for those couple activities prior to the start of footings. So really, we're looking for that new building to start coming out of the ground in April of 21. And we're looking at a 2-year construction time frame similar to Cheston, which would be wrapping up in May of 23, and then a final site work phase with respect to any final circulation with driveways, with sidewalks, and as I said about the Green Pond, any final improvements related to Green Pond road widening happening over that summer time frame. So that come August of 23, the building and site are complete and ready for students for the fall of 23. So that's kind of the overall time frame. We'll have some final adjustments here as we work through this final step with the township and their approvals. As far as the budget goes, we are currently at a number of $35,152,000. I believe back in January we had an update, public update for everybody, and that was the number. And you might remember that we mentioned that the Act 34 hearing, which now is 3 years ago, that number was about 33.5 million. So certainly we have realized some increase in project cost. Luckily, we were able to not extend the township timeframe to the fullest extent that we were fearful of at one point related to the stormwater and the neighborhood. So, we're still in a position at this point for that $35 million number. And obviously, as we finalize these design documents over the next month or so, that number will be fine-tuned and confirmed. But we just wanted to, again, get that number in front of the board tonight. Okay, are there any questions, especially, I guess, for Joe or Danny, on any of the features for the building?
Josh.
Yes.
Oh, I had a question. I seem to recall that maintenance building that's off the property a little bit. They get their electricity. Is that set up to the building? Is that what I heard? I seem to recall something. They have to do something with the electric in that building.
Yes.
It's drawing from the old Palmer School. Is that correct?
Yes. In fact, several utilities to the maintenance building are fed via Palmer. So that's one of the first activities that needs to happen before demolition is the rerouting of utilities directly to the maintenance building.
All right. Is that included in this general estimate?
Yes.
Okay, that is in there?
Yes,
Okay.
it is. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Joe, Danny, and Josh. Any questions or clarifications from board members? Okay, we can move on to recap the summer projects. Alyssa, is this Mr. Case's turn?
This will be Mr. Case and Mr. Gray.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So not so much a summer project, obviously extending into next year, but we did just want to take a brief moment and share a couple photos from the Cottingham work. I'm sure that there have been some photos circulated already via social media and other outlets. It's quite a popular place to be, standing on the fence outside of Cottingham, especially as those bleachers were going down. But as you can see, the top two photos are within the existing field house. That building is being, essentially the shell and structure are being retained. The innards of that building are being completely reconfigured with the new home and away team rooms, and also the cheerleading rooms downstairs. So that will be a welcome home, I think, for the cheerleaders as opposed to where they were previously. So underground utilities in that building are starting. That building did have abatement, which was completed with really no unforeseen or additional items. So, reconstruction of that space is well underway at this point. Down below, you'll see that both home and visitor concrete bleachers have been demolished. That material is on its way of being removed. Some of it will be crushed on site and reused for some reclaimed fill. So basically, the intent with the construction timing is to have the new precast bleachers, home and away, installed over the winter time and by the end of the year, so that really the work that happens under the bleachers and the shape of the field itself can happen as soon as the weather breaks after the winter time. So a good portion of that field is actually going to be used for staging of cranes and materials that are needed to get those large precast concrete pieces erected for the bleachers. So it's going to be a pretty exciting and unique, I think, installation of those systems. And we can go down to the next one. And just briefly at the high school, you might remember that phase one of the high school track complex happened last summer. That was the conversion or the replacement of the synthetic field, the resurfacing of the track, and the athletic lighting that went in. And so this summer started kind of a phase two, which, if you remember, includes fixed bleachers, which is what you see on the hill up there in the upper left-hand photo. There's a new bathroom facility that is being constructed at the top of the hill, and that will be used for public and also athletics use for toilet facilities. And also you'll see at the bottom photo there is a new pole building. So that is a storage facility that will be split between football and track. There's an access on either side of that, one facing the track and one facing the football practice field, for very easy access to get materials in and out of there. So much needed storage space provided that will no longer be tying up that small existing masonry building that's at the bottom of the hill. That building will be repurposed for some trainers areas and some storage. So, those three buildings will, really kind of have the same feel, the same aesthetic. And I think it's going to tie together pretty nicely once all those are complete. So I'll defer to Ken if he has any other comments. Otherwise, that is the update.
Yeah, I just like to say, I think this summer we have a lot of projects going on between Cheston and the stadium, high school track, and now we're talking about Palmer School. A lot of exciting stuff going on in the district on the capital improvement side. I think our summer projects have all been very successful. We had a good group of contractors. The improvements to our facilities, that were added or were greatly needed. The stadium project is just an amazing project. I mean, when you go down there and just walk around, the people from the community that stop and talk, every time I go down there, there's somebody standing there looking at it and asking questions. And I mean, I'm really excited to see those bleachers start going up. I think, that's a great, amazing project to be a part of. So, I think we had a really successful summer as some of these projects are wrapping up here. Not a lot of pictures to show, but we also had the middle school projector upgrade, which was completed in the classrooms, which was very successful, great contractor. Just like to thank everyone, thank Josh and Andrew, who's on site, and then also Alloyd 5 for all their design. I think everybody did a really great job, dealing with COVID issues and everything that's going on at the moment. So I just like to thank them. So I appreciate everybody's time and putting the presentation together. So thank you.
Okay, any questions or concerns?
I just have a question about the prefab seating for the stadium. Is that local company we're using for that?
Yeah, Josh, that's a precast.
That's a precast?
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, we didn't necessarily specify a particular company, other than the requirement for precast system. So it did turn out that Skepton Construction, the general contractor, did elect to use Bethlehem Precast for that work.
Well, that's good. They're local. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's great. I also had a question about going back to Palmer. I'm sorry, I was muted. But she was talking about pre-COVID. Shouldn't we be thinking about, going forward, how things are changing, that the furniture should be more adaptable to being able to be separated more than what I was seeing in your rendition?
So I'm not sure if Joe or Danny are still on. The good thing is that that furniture is completely portable. It's certainly not a selection that needs to happen right now. The what we did at Cheston is provide outlets in the floor for power, and basically the intent of that was for mobile device charging, maybe even furniture integration power at some point down the line if that would come to fruition. So, the plan will provide for obviously for space and for power and data infrastructure. As far as how the rooms are configured, it can be completely changeable and is not defined at this point. So,
Josh, I can offer some input on that too. So the furniture that you saw there in the slides for Palmer is very, very similar to what we have at Cheston, and the staff there were able to utilize that furniture because of its flexibility, and that building received all new furniture, and we used that and were able to distance students and use that because of its flexibility. So although in the pictures it showed the desks back to back, again, flexibility is key, especially to classroom furniture.
Yeah, and compared square footage between the two schools, is Palmer bigger than Cheston, or Cheston bigger than Palmer? What would you say?
They are right about at the same size, Susan. They were each about right on 100,000 square feet.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you.
Anything else from the board? At this time, I'd like to hear anything from the public on agenda items from buildings and grounds.
Hi, how's it going? Thank you for having me on. My name's Carter Sokolowski, and I'm here to represent the company Sports Beams. So we submitted a bid on your Cottingham Stadium project, and we feel as if we've delivered a fantastic package. These are the same lights that are going to be used to illuminate the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay this year. Unfortunately, for reasons that we don't quite understand, the contract is choosing not to present our product for consideration. So we just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce ourselves to the decision makers at the school and make sure that you guys have the opportunity to sort of evaluate our product on your own. Because we believe that these are the most advanced lights that are available on the market today for a competitive price.
Thank you, Carter. Okay. Any other people from the public, individuals from the public who want to speak about buildings and grounds? We're good?
Good, Dr. Keegan.
Thank you. Mr. Chando, that wraps up the buildings and grounds. I don't believe we have anything for the agenda for next board meeting to vote on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Keegan. We'll move to...
I'm sorry, sorry, I was muted and I was trying to say something, so I apologize for that. I had to mute myself because of my dog. Before we move out of the buildings and grounds, I just wanted to say, I know that there's some virtual open houses and there's going to be some opportunities, but I would just like for us to recognize that, we opened Cheston Elementary School. Students were there today. We finished this project on time, which in and of itself is great, but also to recognize that this happened in the midst of a pandemic. So, that obviously took a lot of work from a lot of people to get this project delivered, and I just wanted to take a minute to recognize that. So thank you.
Yep, you're absolutely right, Meg.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move to policy, Mr. Snyder.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chando. We have several policy items up for review here tonight. You can see several. Some of these are just updates to fall into alignment with some Title IX changes and as well as following some PSBA guidance. So for that, I'm going to defer to Dr. Burris to kind of give an overview of policies that are to be presented. I think there are one or two in here, I believe, that might be new. So he's going to kind of summarize them in blocks, and I'll pass over to him for a quick overview. Dr. Burris?
Thank you, Mr. Snyder. I am just going to briefly go through the policies as they are written in the agenda. Some are updates due to Title IX legislation that has changed, and others are changes due to take advantage of the possibility of changes needed in reference to the COVID situation. Again, if you follow along with the PSBA's policy network updates that are given out periodically throughout the year, these are the numbers that are associated with that. I am going to, as I go through, make some small recommendations to make changes in the numbers that would better align them with the Easton area school district numbering. Policy 103 is updated due to Title IX as well as policy 104. Again, those are changes to meet the Title IX legislation. Letter C is policy 249, bullying and cyberbullying, that was recommended from PSBA. I am going to recommend that at the next board meeting, this actually be adopted as policy 252.1 and add to it bullying, cyberbullying, and Title IX. This will then support and supplement the current bullying and cyberbullying policy that the district has. Looking at item D, policy 252, which is the dating violence policy, that is the number recommended by PSBA. but to better make it fit with the Easton Area School District policy numbering, I will be recommending for approval that it be listed as dating violence policy number 252.2. Item E, educator misconduct, that will actually be titled policy number 317.1. That will support the current policy 317 that the Easton School District has. Letter F, policy 335, FMLA, that will actually be changed to coincide with the COVID information that has been added to it. Also, there's been some changes to that policy and narrowed the actual policy down, but taken the information and put it into AR formats or attachments. And those attachments and ARs actually add more information about the employee's rights and responsibilities as it relates to the FMLA. Policy 705, facilities and workplace safety, that again is due to the COVID situation. Policy 803, letter H, the school calendar. Again, this addresses changes due to COVID and provides flexibility for the board in changing the school calendar. Policy 824, this would be a new policy for the school district. It's maintaining professional, adult, and student boundaries. And again, this is to meet the new Title IX legislation. And then item J, policy 904, public attendance at school events. This was changed to meet the COVID situation. I did take one item out of the current public attendance at school events about free access to the events and place that in this revision, again, provided by PSBA. PSBA does a lot with policies. They go through and they make sure that their changes and their suggestions, which are outlined in bold in the attachments, meet any current legislation that has changed or, in the case of COVID, situations that have arisen. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Burris. There's a lot to digest on there. There's a lot to read through. Any question or comment from anyone on the board on any of these policies?
We have just one reading of the policies, right? We don't have two, we have one?
Right, we do the reading, and then if there are no suggestions or anything that we need to change, we usually put it up on the agenda for the next business meeting. If there are certain policies that, need to be, if board members want to read through them more, or they have changes, then, we can discuss that at this time or before it's placed on the agenda, and then we can bounce it back into the next committee meeting for further review.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions, comments on the policy changes? Okay. Hearing none. If there's anyone out in the public who has comment or question to address with the proposed policy updates, please notify the district through the chat and they will enable your microphone. Any?
I'm seeing none, Mr. Snyder.
No. Okay. Okay. All right. That being said, these proposed policies and these changes are all going to be put on the agenda for vote on the 22nd. There will be some changes, as Dr. Burris had said, with the numbering. There will be some slight changes with that. So when you see those come up on the agenda, that's not a typo. That's just a clarification and kind of an edit to keep everything lined up and in proper form. That being said, that's the conclusion of the policy, Mr. Shando.
Thank you very much, Mr. Snyder.
we'll move into section 6, other business. Okay, hearing none, certainly I want to take this opportunity to thank the administration for everything that they've done with respect to the opening of school. And I know that includes a large number of people that were involved in that. So sincere thanks and appreciation on their behalf for their efforts. Want to comment on the changes in the board briefing that we're receiving, in that I think it's certainly more comprehensive and cohesive in terms of what's being presented in a very orderly fashion. I mean, reading through it, it really provided a wealth of information and a great deal of depth. So thank you to the superintendent and his staff for making those changes in the briefing. And I just would like to remind the community that, you know, this district and the administration and the board have taken a lot of time and effort to be able to put all the safety practices and protocols in place so that we could open up the school. And one of the key things that we certainly have to remind, you know, each other is when anybody's entering on the school district property, you know, they need to be able to have a mask in place. We require that for our students and staff, and that certainly goes for any community members. As they're entering onto the property, even when they're outside, the district protocols call for wearing a mask. So, and that's for everyone's safety and protection. Any other business from board members? Okay, with that, public to be heard on any non-agenda items. Is anyone that in the public that would like to make comments to the board with respect to non-agenda items? Please click on the icon and you'll be recognized.
I'm seeing none.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion, Ed.
Second, Susan?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Once again, thank you to the administration for your efforts